Hello, Wanderer. Today, we shall share with you a sinister story from Dark Lore Tale. But before we begin, kindly ensure your room is well lit and that you have someone accompanying you while listening. It's essential to have someone nearby who can come to your aid if needed. This is the story of an innocent girl who fell victim to an old woman's wrath, leading to the summoning of a vengeful demon. Let's embark on this chilling journey together. Once upon a time, in a quaint town resided a remarkable young woman named Amelia. Her days were spent diligently working as a loan officer at the local bank, where her kindness, hard work, honesty, and unwavering dedication shone through. Amelia was a beacon of light in the community, admired by all who knew her. One fateful day, the tranquility of Amelia's routine was disrupted when an elderly and peculiar gypsy woman named Mrs. Ganesh stepped into the bank. With long, untrimmed nails and eyes of different colors, she sought an extension on her mortgage. Mrs. Ganesh explained that her health struggles had prevented her from making payments for the past few months, pushing her into a dire financial crisis. The bank, however, was on the brink of repossessing her property, leaving the old woman with nowhere to turn. Deeply moved by Mrs. Ganesh's plight, Amelia's compassionate heart stirred within her. Determined to help, she approached her manager, appealing for an extension on the old woman's mortgage. Unfortunately, her pleas fell on deaf ears. The manager, pressured by superior management to settle the case swiftly, informed Amelia that the bank could not provide assistance to Mrs. Ganesh. Amelia was left with a heavy heart, aware that she was now tasked with handling the delicate situation. With a mix of sympathy and trepidation, Amelia returned to Mrs. Ganesh, expressing her sincerest apologies for her inability to assist. The old lady, a proud and respectable individual, felt the weight of humiliation upon her shoulders. In a desperate plea for mercy, Mrs. Ganesh knelt before Amelia, touching her legs in a gesture of supplication. Overwhelmed by the awkwardness of the situation, Amelia involuntarily withdrew, causing Mrs. Ganesh to fall to the floor. The bank's patrons observed the spectacle, whispering among themselves as security guards were summoned to escort Mrs. Ganesh out of the premises. Before leaving, the old lady, seething with anger, cast a menacing glare at Amelia, uttering chilling words of vengeance. "You will pay for this." Security guards hurriedly restrained Mrs. Ganesh, guiding her toward the exit. As night fell and Amelia left the bank, she settled into her car, ready to escape the unsettling events of the day. But her respite was short-lived. An unimaginable sight greeted her eyes. Mrs. Ganesh, grotesque and consumed by rage, now sat menacingly in the back seat. Shock and fear coursed through Amelia's veins as the old woman lunged forward, seizing her by the ears. In a desperate bid for survival, Amelia fought back, utilizing a nearby stapler as a weapon. The two adversaries engaged in a ferocious struggle, their every move driven by primal instinct. Mrs. Ganesh, fueled by fury, gradually gained the upper hand, tightening her grip around Amelia's neck, suffocating her. Amelia, feeling her life slipping away, summoned her last ounce of strength, gunning the car's engine and crashing into another vehicle parked in front. The impact jolted Mrs. Ganesh forward, providing Amelia a fleeting opportunity to kick her out of the car and slam the door shut. Momentarily victorious, Amelia caught her breath, relief washing over her. But her respite was short-lived. Mrs. Ganesh, undeterred, discovered a large rock and shattered the car's window. With sheer determination, she yanked Amelia out, her grip unyielding. Instead of launching another physical assault, Mrs. Ganesh abruptly broke the cuff button from Amelia's coat, uttering mystical incantations that rendered Amelia unconscious. The old woman placed the cursed button in Amelia's hand while she lay defenseless, and silently retreated into the night. Little did Amelia know that Mrs. Ganesh had unleashed a curse, or perhaps even summoned a demonic entity to exact her revenge. As Amelia regained consciousness, she returned home only to be greeted by strange occurrences that defied explanation. The presence of an otherworldly force lurked around her, its tendrils tightening with each passing moment. Consumed by fear, Amelia sought solace and guidance from Jay, a spiritual practitioner well-versed in such matters. Jay, after conducting a spiritual examination, revealed a chilling truth that some malevolent individual had summoned a demon from the depths of hell named Lamia, a monstrous being with the body of a goat and the visage of a human to carry out the curse. Amelia's very soul was at stake, and if the curse remained unbroken, Lamia would drag her into the depths of hell itself. Jay informed her that the curse had been placed on an item of Amelia's belongings, and her missing coat button seemed to be the catalyst that had unleashed the malevolence. Initially skeptical of Jay's claims, Amelia returned home, hoping against hope that the supernatural events would cease. But as night descended, she was confronted by an apparition that defied logic, a goat-headed figure, its horns casting sinister shadows upon the wall. With a swift and brutal attack, the entity vanished, leaving Amelia in a state of terror and confirming the validity of Jay's revelations. Mrs. Ganesh, in her spectral form, haunted Amelia's every waking moment, her grotesque visage invading even the depths of her dreams. Determined to break free from this relentless torment, Amelia resolved to confront Mrs. Ganesh and plead for forgiveness, in the hopes of persuading her to revoke the curse. With trepidation in her heart, Amelia stepped into the old woman's former residence, only to be met with shocking news: Mrs. Ganesh had passed away the night before. Amelia's heart sank, realizing that she was now trapped in the clutches of a curse unleashed by the deceased vengeful spirit. Fear gripped Amelia's soul as she grappled with the gravity of her predicament. Seeking Jay's guidance once more, she learned that a sacrifice of something dear to her, offered to Lamia, might appease the demon and break the curse. Reluctant but desperate, Amelia made the agonizing decision to sacrifice her beloved pet cat, burying it in her yard as an offering to the malevolent entity. The sacrifice seemingly succeeded in satiating Lamia, yet the nightmare persisted. Amelia found herself relentlessly pursued by the demonic entity, its presence permeating her waking hours, her visions, and her dreams. With no respite in sight, Amelia sought Jay's counsel yet again. He proposed a final, perilous solution to return the cursed coat button to Mrs. Ganesh's grave, severing the ties of the curse once and for all. Entrusting Amelia with the cursed button placed in an envelope, Jay arranged for her boyfriend, John, to escort her back home. Embracing their shared determination, Amelia and John embarked on a journey fraught with uncertainty and dread. They reached Amelia's house, where she had made the solemn decision to venture alone to the graveyard and deliver the cursed button to its rightful resting place. As midnight approached, shrouding the world in darkness, Amelia stood before Mrs. Ganesh's grave, determined to rid herself of the curse's malevolence. Digging into the earth, she unveiled the rotten and grotesque remains of Mrs. Ganesh. Unflinchingly, Amelia placed the cursed button in the open mouth of the old woman's cadaver. In that moment, she felt a weight lifted from her heart, convinced that the curse had been extinguished forever. Satisfied and relieved, Amelia left the graveyard, convinced that her torment was finally at an end. In the days that followed, Amelia planned a peaceful getaway with John, hoping to leave the shadows of the past behind. As they met on the railway platform, however, an unforeseen twist of fate awaited them. John handed Amelia an envelope, explaining that she had left it in his car. To her horror, upon opening the envelope, Amelia discovered the cursed coat button, the very object she believed she had left behind in Mrs. Ganesh's grave. A wave of terror washed over her, signaling that the curse had not been broken after all. In a moment of panic, Amelia stumbled backward onto the railway tracks, realizing with crushing certainty that her time on this mortal plane had reached its end. As if beckoned by a malevolent force, the gates of hell flung open before her, revealing the nightmarish visage of Lamia. Dragged into the abyss of the underworld, Amelia was condemned to a fate worse than death, while John stood powerless, bearing witness to her harrowing demise. And so, in the small town where Amelia's tale began, whispers of the cursed lone officer and her chilling encounter with an ancient malevolent spirit echoed through the years. Her story remains etched in the annals of horror, a cautionary reminder of the terrifying consequences that arise when dark forces are invoked and revenge consumes the human heart. Stay tuned and keep watching. Let's embrace the thrill and dive into the depths of darkness with Dark Lore Tales.